Hello.
Anila,
Welcome.
what timing?
Yeah, cutting a little close today.
It's okay. Hey everybody, welcome to Lorelines Fowlin here. It has been a while. I was gonna say welcome to Lorelines, the podcast where we take 3-week breaks in the summer, but we are back and welcome everybody. I'm so glad to be here, and we're discussing the Omega Sidequests today. I was talking to the cast yesterday, and for some reason I was under the misapprehension that this was additional MSQ, but it's fully Sidequest apparently. But
No, it is additional MSQ,
Is it?
or it will be, as we know.
Just not much.
In 14,
Well, no, I mean the way it
everything
was
is
marked.
MSQ.
The way it was marked in the quest logs, or at least people corrected me. Maybe they needed correction.
It's one of those. This is totally side quest stuff. It's like the it's like the Silva or Ciela stuff where
right.
you just complete all the role missions and then you get that one extra quest and then you're like, why is this optional content?
Yeah, why is
Right.
this optional content?
Like binding coil.
yeah, another one. That's another good example. At this rate, I almost feel like eventually we're gonna have Hildebrand be required reading.
Yeah, like it'd be required for a relic or something.
weapons and stuff.
Don't get me
That'd
started.
be wild, wouldn't it?
Be pretty crazy.
In case anybody didn't know, that is the actual state of things. That is deep sarcasm. Apparently, Relic's gonna be behind Hildebrand now, eh?
I just finished the Stormblood part. Well, no, I didn't finish the Stormblood part. I finished the Endwalker part. Hilarious.
I'm so excited.
Hilarious. Oh my god.
I will get to it. I saw a few screenshots, so I'm pretty hyped to get it done.
You'll love it, and this goes out to people who haven't done it or don't like Hildebrand. Trust me, you're going to love the Endwalker part. Holy shit!
But I don't like comedy.
You don't like comedy.
I had PTSD.
Right, you need a Hildebrand to be rated NC-17. Sorry.
I need it to be something like Monty Python.
I was
I've
thinking
read that
Artie
too.
needs
Enjoy
like Vordebrand or something.
I
Oh,
will say
God.
Hildebrand is not for everyone, but it is for me. So
Yeah. I'm just more sad that we're not getting something, based in Ilsabard or on the moon or Ultima Thule,
Same.
because
Yeah,
they
like
could have done
Corvos.
so much lore-wise with it, and since
Yeah.
it's going Hildebrand, I'm kind of like, there is still stuff that they could do that would be interesting lore-wise, and the designs could still be interesting for the weapons, but I am extremely skeptical.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be comedic, unserious, and gimmicky looking weapons at the moment, just because of that association.
Gosh,
Whereas
I sure
we
hope
could
not.
have had Corvos or something.
I
be where
still
we
want
go to do
Corvos so
relic stuff.
badly.
That
And
said,
that would have been just like Bosja and Eureka.
How do you
and that-
mention it 5 times in the story and not anyway?
right.
Maybe it's coming.
That said,
you know?
I am excited for Godbert and what's his name, Grinold.
Geralt.
Is Geralt?
never
I
escape.
I swapped the Shadowbringers and Eorzean versions.
So the
But yeah,
question
I
is,
am
does
excited
Grinald
to
have a
see those
wig
two
or is that
interact.
real?
Oh,
What's going on in the
God.
first?
Oh God.
I'm-
What it is he's just actually learned to make wigs out of seaweed. So that's just.
I
all
like to
seaweed.
think that the reason that Grendel has his hair is because, unlike Geralt, he never had any relationships with like Moen.
Yeah, Moen.
Oh,
Yeah, he
God.
hid under the
He
sea.
never had his hair fall out from that experience with Rowena.
Or maybe on the first, Moen is the one pursuing him, and that's why he ran away under the sea.
Oh, that's pretty plausible.
So yeah, today's topic.
Who needs it?
The dragons probably
I
don't.
do, and Cobron does, and
Yeah, I definitely
Pat
do.
does.
So this, honestly, the first thing I thought when I completed this quest was it immediately made me think of the crafting quests and how they're probably going to be mandatory too.
Yes.
Oh geez.
You talking about the studium?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just finished fishing yesterday. Ooh,
Great.
my.
I haven't done any of the crafting ones, and I'm
Yeah,
on the 90. Woo! Time to waste XP.
Mhm.
You really need to.
I especially recommend what was it, like the alchemy one, or not the alchemy one, the one with the two, the Alra guy and the
That's
higher leader.
that's actually the anthropology department, and they're doing culture studies.
right,
Yeah.
that one especially. on. You'll like it a lot.
And then the crypticness of the goldsmith one.
Yes.
Oh God, that one.
Yeah, they're all important, but like individually they are important, yes. But what's really important about them is the capstone quest to them. That's what's important.
Well, that'll be my next homework then. Speaking of
Because
Charlian,
it very clearly lays seeds for what's coming.
Speaking of,
yeah, speaking of Charlian, isn't this where we pick up the quest? Was it in it's been 3 weeks. You guys just finished it last night, so my apologies. But I thought
Oh,
we
I
could
Oh, I
proceed-
just did it like 3 hours ago.
Yeah, where did we
I
pick this
completed
quest
it a
up? Was this in
while ago.
Labyrinthos?
Charlotte.
You pick
Was
it
it
up
Charlian
in
proper?
Charlian proper, and then they take you off
Yes.
to Labyrinthos, and you kind of follow quasi. This is one thing I noticed while I was doing it. You quasi follow the arc of the expansion itself. You start there in Labyrinthos, you head over to Thavnair, and then you go to Garlemald, and then
So-
talk to the moon, and then talk to the Watchers, kind of an
Yeah,
Elvis
so-
villain.
This is the same vein of the recap quests from Heaven's Word and Stormblood and Shadowbringers, where you kind of go over everything.
That's right. Yeah.
But in Shadowbringers, they did it more as the capstone to the role quests, and here we have more of an expanding of another character, while also recapping and following up on what happened after the events of Endwalker. Endwalker.
Quick question. It's a bit leading, but since you mentioned Heaven's Ward, do you think that they have figured out the right way to do it? Because the Heaven's Ward ones, I was actually a bit insulted. Like, you don't think I remember this stuff? And it didn't add much extra value to me. It was just a runaround, and this actually adds flair.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the Heaven's Ward ones were kind of a waste of time, and the Stormblood ones were a little bit better. In Shadowbringers is where I think they really finally started to say, hey, we have a real opportunity here to develop something, to create something new, while also going over, what happened while expanding the lore of the world. And here we have another character that was an enemy. It was not so subtly hinted that Omega was still alive within the little tiny minion. But here we have, absolute confirmation of that. You go on an adventure with Omega. Omega's like, I don't get you guys. Everything you're doing makes absolutely no sense. You're going about things in the least efficient way.
Illogical.
And I don't understand it. You're all crazy. How did you beat me?
The power of friendship.
Well, it's
No,
interesting.
the
'cause
power of delusion.
Power
they
of Kingdom Hearts.
It's
Power of
interesting
the
because
Kingdom.
they're kind of addressing that. They're basically saying, I'm going to try and quantify this thing. I'm trying and at least feel out the shape of it.
Yeah.
So, obviously in Stormblood we fought Omega, and I'm sure everybody here finished that raid out. One of the best pre-battle cutscenes in the game, final Omega raid, and then kind of dissipates, and Alpha runs around the world with the OMG, the Omega bot, and just kind of think it's a minion for a bit. We all kind of suspect that there's something there, but there's nothing really to tell us that. And then we get the short story from the future during the 8 Umbral Calamity part of the story before Grahatia goes back to the past and everything. And in that story, we get plenty from Omega as to him it monitoring the humans as they progress. But we still hadn't gotten anything in the actual game, unless I'm mistaken, until now. Is that wrong?
Correct.
Is that right?
we get references, but no more than that.
Yeah. It was just like little hints. Because I think
That's what I was
before
gonna
they at the very end of the Omega raid series, when Alpha and the OMG are there, I believe Wedge mentioned something like, "Oh, we didn't program it to do that."
Because the way they kind of did the short story thing, the biggest one was when Grahatia was talking with Oriange, and explained that how exactly it all transpired of how the Crystal Tower got here. Now, it was explained in kind of a vague sense, but then it was elaborated further in the short story. And then, you sit there like, wow, this really, really possibly, there's a good chance this would have failed, but they did it.
So in this Endwalker storyline, they give the Omega Bot a voice box so it can actually speak with us, and on a whim, which kind of reminded me of the goldsmithing quest a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. It's very similar. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was some kind of similar technology. But I think what this does is it really starts to add a lot more characterization to Omega. Because before, when Omega talked to us, it was all about the mission, and it's still all about its mission to evolve and learn. But it's trying to logically break down why it lost and what mortal humans have that it lacked. And yeah,
In
spoiler, but the conclusion was, like I said earlier, the power of delusion.
in addition to that, its first question to us was that it had read the reports from Ultima Thule and what happened with its compatriots and Sir, and was very confused about Sir's decision to allow itself to terminate.
Did anyone else take this as evidence that Sir has somehow gained or had somehow gained a soul, or is that just my conclusion?
Me, I had thought that too. There was something off-putting about it.
Well,
Not,
'cause
well, I wouldn't say off-putting, but like something strange.
I
it
took
was
it oppositely
unusual.
to
It
you,
was
Nilo.
not normal for Omicron because they say, well, all Omicron would come to the same conclusion because we have the same hardware, and then he's like, but this one didn't.
Yeah, Nilo,
So-
I took the opposite tack. I actually think
Mhm.
that Sir had a soul and was probably the only bioorganism left.
I agree with Fal.
Just-
I believe
That would make
that,
sense.
yeah, Sir was the only one left with a soul, whereas the rest of them had to, abandon that basically. But Sir probably realized that, a soul was needed to direct the collective.
I went a little bit further than that and was wondering if Sir was created from multitudes of biological components and was like in itself a collective of remaining souls from their people.
Oh, that's really interesting. So if they just kind of fused all the souls of their
Mhm.
race together, and
Sort of a
everything
Zodiac
else was just
analog.
And in
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
so in that sense, the entire race decided to commit suicide together through this one personage that represented the whole, like a hive mind.
Mhm.
There is some
Well,
stuff
and-
that
So,
flies in the face of that, though, right? In the actual Ultima Thule quests, not to dominate or anything, but when we're going through our dialogue with Sir, and it keeps mentioning that it has no such will, it cannot decide to move forward. It has its own, and I don't know if that is actually self-delusion or not. It was a memory of the being, not the being itself, but still, that's a little bit wonky there.
Yeah,
It could have been
that could've been-
Medion's commentary
Right.
about Sir.
Yeah, that,
true.
that could have been Medion as well.
Yeah, we haven't really met Sir, just the emotional, I guess, echo of Sir.
Yeah.
And even that was capable of some manner of self-reflection, which I don't think would be possible if Sir didn't have a soul.
Possibly, although Omega
Certainly,
has
the other
self-reflection.
Omicron don't display it.
No, absolutely not. So, to the topic of the entire race self-suiciding, would you say that the Omicrons are what happened to races that forsake the will of Rala and strike out on their own?
Praise be to Rala.
Praise be.
I did want to comment on it slightly. It wasn't just like, oh, there's no point in living. It's we have caused untold horror, agony. We've made ourselves into something terrible. That was, as I see it, their motivation. It's
Right.
motivation, I guess.
We had a
But
question
yes.
in the chat. I don't know if do you guys know? Maybe I'm wrong about this. I thought Sir was just literally Sir, like a title that you would have in other words, the person
Presumably,
in charge.
the head of their military, everything, since they are all military, basically.
We did learn a little bit from reading Dialogue of Omega's admittance that the Omicrons name themselves after their transference to machine entities after their numerical designation for stars.
Right.
So Sir struck me as a title with that in mind, and that we don't ever actually get its name other than maybe I guess Alpha 1 or something as a designation.
Stigma 1.
Yeah.
Stigma 1, yeah, that's true.
To answer your previous question in chat, Zombie, yes, he does have a voice regulator now. So, provided you can see him in public walking around, or if he's still at the base in Charlayan, he will speak.
So now, Omega proper, not our minion in our bag, but Omega on the map will speak. That's really cool. That's really cool.
I would be very interested to see if him and Alpha, or it and Alpha rather, decided to ever go to Ultima Thule and see what happened.
See, that was kind of what I was hoping would happen in these quests, but
yeah, but they never did. They went as close as Almazane, but never actually went on the Ragnarok to Ultima Thule.
I would be very surprised if the lead-up quest to unlock the Beast Tribe wasn't this quest, because I was shocked that this quest line did not have a plus sign, and I think it's going to come 625.
I can't imagine. I mean, it could be that they don't do it, but I just can't imagine them not integrating, or at least a visit with Omega and Alpha, because I mean, the spaceship, if I recall from the story, when we get home, they're like, yeah, you can still kind of teleport straight to Ultima Thule. It's not it's not lore breaking. They said there's some sort of like crazy temporal spatial thing. There's a link.
There's some stupidity that the ship exists in both places at once.
Yeah, some science stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like they should have been like, since you saved the world, you can use this whenever you want, instead of just like, oh, it's also there.
Yeah, it only took 6 carats or whatever.
They're like, lol, the physical ship is in Thalmazane, the Dynamis ship is in the Dynamis land over there.
Yeah. Didn't they say during one of the PLLs that these Omega quests would be multiple, like across multiple patches?
They did, yes.
Yeah. It is not done yet. There will be many others.
Looking forward to it.
I'm still annoyed with Shinryu just piecing out across the universe when we needed a spaceship and all the primals. What is going on?
I don't know how far Yoshi P will milk the whole we have a spaceship now, let's explore space thing, because I think he wants to keep it kind of grounded. But I want him to actually start exploring other places.
I'm sorry for those of you who haven't finished the crafting quests. If you haven't, cover your ears for the next 30 seconds or so. But they pretty much explicitly state at the end in the capstone quest that the ultimate goal of all of the studium quests is to prepare for exploring space. And
I was gonna. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and the message at the end of Omega tells us that there is still life out there, and so I think this is kind of like groundwork for an eventual outside of Aetheris expansion.
Yeah, like the Charlayans. The Charlayans.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the Charlayans were already preparing to leave, so it would be an easy thing for them to transfer that to. Well, we don't actually have to all leave, but we can still explore and try and do what the Alligans had attempted to do at one point. Only this time more sustainably.
Sorry. Some of what I was seeing in the Omega quests had me thinking, oh, I think they're lining up for visiting another world as part of an expansion.
And then you have to consider, like, how would their spaceship like travel the rift? Because it's one thing to travel to the moon and to another star within the bounds of our universe. We haven't retrofitted it, or at least as far as we know, haven't retrofitted it to Omega's ability to traverse the rift.
It seems like that's just kind of wormhole stuff. I mean, we got hyperhops, and the moon is still a spaceship, so...
This makes me wonder what the relative... Like, how exactly one would go about traveling to another star versus traveling to just a reflection.
Well, we traveled to Ultima Thule via wormhole. I mean, that with like he said, with wormhole, hyper hop, we basically just stargated the whole thing.
Yeah. So it would be something like that, as opposed to maybe something different for going to another.
With other stars, though, remember they were sundered into reflections, different rifts.
That's more of a dimensional travel thing.
Yeah, and so it's slightly different. So we don't know if Charlayan had the technology or knew how to hop the rift. Omega did, and possibly the dragons.
They could probably ask Grahatia a few questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still have our giant tower. Hey, dude, could you just, like, maybe we can AI this for you so you don't have to turn into a rock.
Reverse engineer the Allegan technology.
Give Omega a little bit more of what he wants, and then he'll teach you. You gave me a voice. Give us more.
Oh, no.
Ooh,
Listen, we can go to the
Give them some
dungeon.
temperature shielding.
Zombie Zanetta brings up a good point. Now, does our outer space on the source exist around all reflections, or are each shard so large that there's a giant universe for each shard or reflection?
No.
I actually kind of covered this in one of our videos. So basically, the only shard, quote unquote, that exists with the rest of the universe is the source. And that would be because, from what I understand, from what I've seen in game, it exists on the broadest wavelength with the rest of the universe. When you go to the first and you look at the skybox is different. And there are far less stars on the first. And that's because it's not etherically attuned to as much of the universe. So you can go out into the universe from the other shards. There's just nothing there.
I would love to be able to ask Yoshi P this question
I'd
and
be so
watch the
mad.
knots that would come about as he tries to answer it.
He would just say what he always says, which
it's a
is
timey-wimey thing because
Yeah.
Wow, you guys pay a lot of attention.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go.
Yep.
Here's some complex metaphysics for you to think about on stream.
Me dumps my entire folder of sky comparison screenshots.
Yeah.
God, remember when
Because-
we did that? And we spent
Yeah.
like a whole night just kind of jumping back and forth, like, man, this looks different. This moon looks different. What do
Yeah.
we got over here?
And we
Oh,
all
The galaxy
flipped.
band is only visible at certain times of night on the first. Okay.
We panicked
Yeah.
that entire week.
And then when they updated the moon model,
Yeah.
Yes,
for
I remember
Endwalker,
that.
we were like, "What's
Yeah,
going
Arden
on
and
with
I
the
just
moon?"
kind of
Wrong
went
with
off
the
on a
moon?
tangent.
hmm I really have to wonder if Vana thought about what the implications of that would be.
No, but
Maybe she just likes
Alex,
big rocks.
it is another timey-wimey thing that I have issues with because remember when in Shadowbringers how they said the point of on the first is entering a period of near equivalence with the source, and so it makes you kind of wonder what if time like speeds up or slows down by itself in the first. Or
Yeah.
if it flows differently.
That would be a convenient way for them to have Reen and Gaia grow up while nothing much happens on the source, if they ever wanted to.
We popped back there
if
in
they
the
wanted
90.
to. There's also a theory that each shard is its own kind of little universe bubble. I don't think they exist in separate universes. They are like different planes of existence, so they all overlap each other. It's just really hard to go between them.
Yeah, I mean, if the question that was asked was something like, did the Sundering make 14 full universes, the answer is no. That would be crazy.
I expect it to be either a local warping effect or other universes already existed and they just got sent there or something.
So Alex says, I'm referencing the universe's entropy in this regard being difference between the shards and the source. I don't know if I talked about entropy a lot in the light and dark video we did, where basically darkness is pure entropy and light is pure stasis. And so it really depends, I think, on the amount of darkness and light that are in balance on a particular shard with how fast time goes. But that's just like a crazy theory that I just came up with just now.
Meaning the fact that it was extremely light aligned slowed stuff down so we could
Slowed it down to the same as on the source, because on the source, remember that Elidibus was saying that, light is getting too strong on the source, and the light from the first was flooding into the source as well. So they had that stasis connection, which brought them into near equivalence.
They were preparing a rejoining, so the two of them were very
Yeah.
closely aligned at that point.
That's what I was going to say, was that something about the nature of rejoining, about the ether flowing back and forth. Because, when they explain the mechanics of rejoining, wow, pretend I can talk. When they explain the mechanics of rejoining, they'd say, you increase the pressure of a certain element or aspect, and it would start to stream to the source to equalize. Well, that might force an equivalency.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And
that
we've been
makes sense.
seeing the impact of the first on the source since ARR.
This
Yeah.
makes me wonder if, because correct me if I'm wrong, darkness was what was used during the 7th calamity with Bahamut and everything, right?
That's correct.
So
Yeah, it
Well,
was
it's
astral.
described as unaspected and sometimes as astral, so
yeah,
it's
if
weird.
it was
Well, no,
astral, then
Elidibus clarified in 5.3 the 7th calamity had left the world listing
Oh,
dangerously
right,
towards
right.
darkness.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they were going to use light to counterbalance that and also cause
Exactly.
I think what they meant by unaspected was it was a calamity of all elements, just dark
Yes.
aspected elements. So
Right.
they needed a light calamity to balance that out.
Right. To get another rejoining and also balance it out.
Right.
Okay, so with that in mind, that makes you wonder if we also entered a near equivalence fairly recently with the 13th.
I've never really thought about it before, but does time on the void flow differently than the source? It is a shard. It would make sense if it did sometimes. But is it being messed up affect that? I'm curious now. I've never really thought about that.
How far in the past or the future are they relative to what other shards or the source have experienced?
We at least
we do know
have
that
the age of
the
Unocal High, so
Yeah, the 13th is at most 20,000 years old. We do know that. And the Sundering only happened 12,000 years ago per the source's timeline. So at most, they are 8,000 years ahead of the source. At least they are 16,000 years, which still puts them pretty far ahead of the source time-wise. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's flooded with darkness, so time goes a lot faster there.
There's a lot more things happening, even if not necessarily like the void's not doing anything in particular.
Right.
I guess these are questions we'll have for when we go to the 13th.
Indeed.
Do we have any thoughts on Omega's takes on humanity and basically how people reacted to the situations that they were in?
He
I will
judged.
say, go ahead.
He just it seemed to judge everything on pure logic, but was slowly starting to make room for at least considering the seeming logic that people were handing to it. Like the Garlean guy who was praying at the graves of those two people that we went through the MSQ and saw, commit suicide and stuff. That trying to understand the relationship between the Ilsabard contingent and the surviving Garleans, like from Omega, the distinction doesn't really exist. Everybody's trying to survive out here. You should be pooling resources. That should be your only consideration. But he's trying to explain to it that you need to take a careful tact to understand, like, there are cultural differences, historical differences. Like, there's been conflict between these two groups, and you need to overcome that first, however slowly but surely, to be able to find a common ground that can at least lead you to a modicum of cooperation. Like, you can't just assume everyone has to be in accordance immediately, and that efficiency and peace will reign like instantly, essentially.
Yeah. For me, I sort of empathized a little bit. Sorry, I think I've got some background noise. I kind of empathized a little bit with its confusion over, well, why would this person survive even though they felt like this? The conclusion I drew from what I saw was looking forward was the thing that would save people. Sort of a don't look back thing. But literally forging ahead.
The running theme of the expansion.
Indeed. Which I kind of got arrested in the one scene. There was one scene they spent, I'm sure, a lot of time on where everyone's walking. They're like, oh, we got to go back to the airship. We got to go do some stuff. And then so they're walking and talking. And I'm like, this is symbolic.
I also liked that from an animation perspective. It's not that common we see a scene like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the whole quest line was extremely cinematic, far more so than I would normally expect.
Mm-hmm.
So you
It's a
agree
good way
that
to
they
put
put
it.
in MSQ levels of effort into this quest?
I don't know about that, but closer. It was certainly closer to an MSQ style quest. I feel like they might be getting better at rigging things in more quests than just MSQ to actually have that quality.
I still remember when we had the teacup.
Yes.
If you
We were
had
like, did the liquid just go
drinking?
down?
Yes, we
And the
all
bread.
Hey,
forgot
that
about
was
that.
cool.
Yes, and the HD
Yeah.
bread. HD Archon loaf.
It's
Yeah, the panel loaf.
basically banana bread with fish in it.
And tastes like sawdust.
I still remember just that entire cutscene was just pure art.
Yeah.
As soon as Alize was making actual people movements instead of just emoting, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, so this is what's happening now.
This is where all our subscription money is going into. Better mocap.
Now I was like, okay, well then, I'll keep giving them my money.
Forge ahead, Yoshi.
hmm I thought it was really interesting how Omega basically said, okay, I thought, maybe you're the spirit or soul or whatever it was something that aided you in wielding Dynamis or something. Which I thought it was interesting that Omega flat out said, I wasn't familiar with Dynamis before this. So I think it's interesting to see that Dynamis is a new concept that the Omicrons hadn't really encountered before.
They didn't have any capacity whatsoever, it seems, after they became machines to wield it, so I wouldn't see them knowing about it necessarily.
But
Until
Sir,
Medium.
yeah, but Sir did, because Sir succumbed to despair, and just kind of shut everything down. There's no reason it can't start back up, but shut everything down. So I think that's even though that they didn't really have a capacity to comprehend it, they could still be affected by it.
Can I pick a bone with that real quick?
Yes.
So in this storyline quest, the resolution is Omega finally decides to honor the bargain we made, having learned enough about the people of the source and how mortals act, living beings act, that it translates the log for us. And I was sure that actually came from Sir.
That would be really interesting if it did.
It was in Pan-Galactic Common, and
Yeah, they left it open.
At first, I thought it was from Hermes, and then I was like, well, wait, it would be an ancient then.
right.
Yeah,
I
they
thought-
left it open.
It's the whole being fascinated with the stars, sorry.
Core saying that they left it open enough that it could be interpreted either way.
Right.
I thought it was
actually
strongly
interpreted it-
implicative that it was Sir's last
I-
transmission.
I interpreted it as like not only open to interpretation in universe, but also as a kind of like subtle fourth wall, the author is writing to you directly, kind of thing, through the medium of like no characters actually like saying this. It's just a message in the void that's being sent out that you happen to have intercepted.
See, I would think that too, if the devs have not proven themselves to inject stuff like that, and then come back to it years later. Specifically thinking of the Morse code at the end of Crystal Tower.
That's
Well,
fair.
maybe this is another one of those. Maybe they'll
It
come
could
back.
be. And so I'm gonna piss a Yumi off here. What I hope is that it is Sir or a survivor of another alien race that, when Medion flew off, sang her final song, and then, injected hope back into the universe, that was the message that got sent out because, there's still survivors and now they're, oh, okay, there's a chance, to live. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see that message having come from us in the future to help guide us.
I agree. Alex is asking
Yes.
these questions trying to derail us. Do you see this one here? Were the Omicrons in Ultima Thule made of Dynamis? If so, then remaining Omicrons could head there and study their own Dynamis versions. LOL.
Pure
See-
Dynamis.
Well, so here's the other issue, right? We have the dungeon now where the billion Omega frame chassis are just being mass produced in this fakey fake Dynamis world. Define fake, like they seem real
Dynamis-
enough. Let's be honest.
Yeah, if Dynamis is as real as Aether when it's solidified and can really kill you, I mean, is it really?
It's
a
not
distinction
natural
anymore?
born or created, but yes, I understand.
Yeah, you can say they're recreated or remade, but you can't say they're not real. So these things are out there.
Yeah.
Now I just
They-
want to take OMG to Stigmascape and give it a new chassis.
There you go. Give them a new robot
then-
body.
And then we can hop in and fly around the universe in Omega instead of the Ragnarok.
We already have
cape.
that one.
I guess my response to that would be yes, they're made of Dynamis, but yes, they're also real. No, they're not the originals, but they are still the Omicrons.
Non-original is a good way to put it, actually.
Yeah.
They're like a recreation or a
They're almost like
substitution.
we could almost think of them as like a new form of life.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
I mean, Medion
Oh.
calls them like
Ugh.
a memory, but really they're real. So
Aside from the Omicron, they aren't really reproducing. They're kind of just like in a well, they were in a despair state. I don't know how
What's
it remains
this?
after this whole thing actually.
Extinguished life rekindled?
Thinks an ancient. Thinks about Amarot shades.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
I was actually sitting here thinking, I was like, I feel like we need to take the Shades and Amarot in the first and the Dynamis creations and like have them meet each other because I don't know what'll happen, but it'll be interesting.
Well, I
Yeah.
almost feel like the Dynamis creations are a little more sentient. At least it seems to be. Whereas the ones in Amarot were more programmed for just specific
Yes.
educational
Well,
purposes. Other
aside
than
from one of
Hypnodeus.
them, which would be the relevant one, we'd need to put him in our pocket. Incidentally, that reminds me, one of the things I thought during this quest was if we can put them in our pocket to teleport, because that was the in-game explanation for how we took Alpha and Omega around with us for this quest. They'd be like, yeah, we're your possessions now, just bring us along. I was like sitting there like, can we put them to the first?
Yeah. Just like a Zem crystal plus the flower field and Absolute Horizon that was made by Hades and Hypnodeus. It would make sense.
Hypnodeus and Hades are now our possessions.
Damn right they are.
That's right.
Yes.
God, we could bring Omega with us and have them along with us too. That would be just the best conversation, having them interact.
Okay, you just gave me a very fun idea that will probably never happen, but it's a cute idea. Take Omega to the place, get it a new chassis, new trust member.
Brilliant. Yes. That would be legit, like the best
It
trust.
would be cool.
The LB is turning into the Scarab.
With like missiles,
Kind of
like it fires missiles and stuff as our trust pal.
Yeah, I'm thinking
No,
LB
LB
is the
would have
Scarab.
to be
and
Hello
then
World.
Hello
Let's
World,
be
you think?
real.
Yeah.
Oh, the eyeball.
Giant eyeball firing a laser beam, yeah.
So how about synthetic limit breaks?
Or
that's an interesting idea.
synthetic transformation forms.
Well, so we have Omega 12, where Omega MF is casting all of our Sagittarius arrows and is using all the abilities. We use Dynamis
Yeah.
to do that, but what was Omega doing to do that?
It's a good question.
Probably without even realizing it, maybe a little bit of Dynamis.
Omega had regrets. So what is this?
Maybe Omega doesn't even realize it has a soul already.
I would also argue that, like, Dynamis was a new discovery in the ancient world, too, or, at least
A very
not
fringe
well
one.
known about.
Yeah.
But it's still a thing that exists, and therefore a highly intelligent race like the Omicrons should be able to study and measure it, even if they couldn't necessarily use it themselves initially. And if you can study and measure something technologically, you can probably find a way to utilize it.
I mean, and that's the same logic you could apply to real world, like humans knowing things like antimatter or dark matter are probably something that exist. We can't interact with them or use them, but they are there and we can measure them. So eventually maybe we can learn how to use them.
Yep.
I think this is a good opportunity to make sure that we make the distinction that maybe it's not having a soul that allows Dynamis, because who even has a soul? I mean, we discussed Medion and Entelekes.
Yeah.
We know that
was gonna
Alpha
bring
got
that
a
right up.
soul, and I'll let you take over, but it's just a thought I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I would not expect that a soul is necessary. I mean, after all, the flowers were the they were Entelekes. I wouldn't expect a plant to have a soul such as we recognize in a quote unquote human, the races of man sort of thing. I guess I would assume all the races have souls.
Right.
But I wonder if it's now you have me thinking. I wonder if the thing with Dynamis is that you have to believe, not necessarily in the Dynamis itself, but to have a strong faith something that would be more natural to creatures with a soul, but definitely not exclusive to those that don't, or definitely not exclusive to them.
I would agree with that.
Just answering a few things in the chat.
If you have faith as a grain of mustard.
Yeah, I would say that
made out of ether cannot readily manipulate dynamis.
Not pure ether, but
strictly.
We know that
to do with the density.
Things that contain a soul do have a certain amount of dynamis. Even the ancients had dynamis in them. They were just so densely ether rich that they couldn't readily manipulate it. They still could, but not nearly as well as sundered people.
Yeah, they created entelechies, so they obviously could manipulate it.
But just it's such a dilute amount of their total volume that they may not have ever noticed.
Synthetic dynamis.
We really paid attention, guys.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Don't make me make that an emote.
It's open to your interpretation.
Oh my god.
If he ever watches our videos, know that we love you, Yoshida-san.
We do.
We do, but
Don't worry.
That answer.
We're just nerds, dude.
I don't
like to understand things.
And write fanfic about them.
Yes.
Right.
Why do you hate me?
I can feel you all looking at me in time travel stuff.
Yeah, I'm staring right at you, actually.
I mean, if you didn't constantly say you hated it, we wouldn't bother you about it.
Right?
At least we had Alexander, and that was like a loop that I could deal with. But then we move into like the 8th Unbook Calamity. Then we move into Graha talking about timelines can shift, and then we move into Endwalker.
So
I'm not even going to go into it today.
Alexander fragmented time. That's it was a loop, but it fragmented time, and that's how we got
a loop that fragmented time within a loop that also fragmented time.
Basically, if anyone has done any coding, Alexander sort of had a what's it called, like the overflower, where it goes in circular. My brain just went blank. God.
Causality loop.
Yeah, accidentally wrote existence in this case instead of just its code into a circle.
Oh, you not a grandfather. Bootstrap paradox.
That would be the paradox, yeah. I was trying to think of a coding term. It's not important, though.
I wouldn't be surprised if every bit of existence in this universe was a loop at some point, however long.
Yes, time circles endlessly.
Exactly.
Before I talked to you all, I took Alexander to just be having calculated all futures and determined that there was a point at which it could not progress without letting us survive, so...
Well, that is true as well, but it says something in the quest about like reality strained to accommodate these what it was doing.
Infinite potential futures. Yeah.
That's right.
Which means there are infinite potential pasts, which means time got fragmented.
And it also makes me think about Vritra talking about us as a knot, like a really bound up knot of fate.
Was the word nexus used? I don't remember.
Sorry? What word used?
Was the word nexus used?
I don't think Vritra used that term, but I almost feel like somebody.
Yeah, I don't remember the specific term, but it's a very good one for it.
Yeah, nexus is still a good term for it. We are kind of like a nexus, or
we are a nexus of fate, basically.
A confluence of timelines.
Alternate future where we determine that since we are the nexus of fate, everything's about us, nothing matters, and we become the monster in the dark.
So what you're saying is alternate universe where we figure out that we're playing a video game.
Correct.
I mean, I would enjoy something like that. It's very dark.
We go back and become the original Azam. Just for Ayumi.
Yes.
Everybody's Azam canon's just out the window.
I wanted to touch on some of the more human stuff in this quest line. We touched on how people are vastly different from the logic-driven entities like the Omicrons, but more specifically, how everyone has to come to their own answer and nobody's equal and everyone determines a different path, and some people who seem very strong are actually brittle to this kind of thing, and others survive when you would have thought them weak, and how nothing's really predictable on the front end. You just kind of have to wait and see.
Yeah,
Did you all
I think
pick up
that
on
goes
this?
back to I joke about it being the power of delusion, but it's basically that reality is shaped by perception. When you have just logic and data, you really only have one viewpoint. But when you have, different emotions, different experiences that all feed into how you perceive events, it really adds context to things. And that context is what I think Omega really wasn't understanding, is that everything has context and viewed through that lens.
The mind knows what is, but the heart knows what it wants.
There was something else interesting that I found actually, because Omega and Omicron, its type in general, come to decisions based on logic. That's not how organic beings operate. Like I don't to put on my nerd hat a little bit. Humans who have something go wrong with their emotional system, like we can't just say, oh well, we have to be logical and cut out emotion. Emotion is how we make decisions. If you have something happen so that like your emotions aren't really coming through, you will be paralyzed by indecision. Things like, oh well, I stepped onto the floor yesterday and it was dirty and it didn't feel good and that's why I swept. That's why I decided to sweep, because of how I felt, or whatever it is. Like emotion is a major driver of basically every decision ever that we make. And obviously, Omega functions completely differently, which is part of why it looks at us and is like, what gives? How do you even make decisions? And it explains why humans come to all these different decisions, different experiences. It just felt to me like the quest line was getting at that a little bit.
No, yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of philosophy in this game, and this is certainly one of those points where you have to
Yeah.
think about free will versus determination in a galactic universal scale. Like how much of what you're doing is dictated by your mind and your heart, and how much of it is dictated by what you've been given versus what you want to see in the world.
Nature versus nurture.
Mm-hmm.
The left and right hemispheres of the brain. That sort of thing. This actually kind of dovetails a little bit with the Watcher section of the Omega Quests too, and how we talk about the ancients and their decision making and whether or not they were justified, but all of them were operating on limited information and also on their own personal beliefs and emotions.
I think it was really cool that the quest line let us decide who we thought was right.
How
Yeah.
did you all answer?
Emmett Selk.
That was hard. I honestly, I feel like the most correct person was Hermes. Aside from, yes, as Emmett Selk said, this was sophistry. He looked at this and he said, you guys aren't treating these beings well because they don't have souls or because they're just created, and you got to stop it.
I didn't answer for any of them. I said they were all heroes in their own story.
Yeah, I ended up picking the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Okay, so in my heart, they're all justified, but also not justified at all. It's almost like I'd want to pick both the they're all justified and none of them are justified answer. So with that in mind, when I actually had to pick, I just picked Emmett because he's the one I agree with the most.
Yeah, I just picked him itself, and I very much enjoyed the expression my character made because they looked very fierce when they decided what to say.
That's funny.
Wool was committed.
My conclusion to that was just basically we've gone over their stories. We learned Emmett's story. We learned Vanna's story. We've learned Hermes' story. We've learned pretty much every villain and every non-villain story we've come across, and we've weighed and judged them based on our decisions. So really, you can't say that one or the other is right or the other is wrong. Hell, we can't even be judged on our decisions, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
So it's more of like, they were the heroes of their own story, just like we are the heroes of our own story. They could look at us and be like, well, you're wrong, but you're also right in your own way.
The victor writes the tale, the loser becomes the villain.
I think one thing I noticed while I was doing this quest line, I really appreciated actually, was that they kind of more explicitly than in MSQ sat down Venaz's decisions and Hermes' decisions and really showed the parallels between them that I think a lot of people just really didn't pick up on
From
in
a
MSQ,
third-party
and took a minute
perspective
to
as well.
highlight it.
The three of
Yes,
them were
which
very
was
much
really
paralleling.
it was a very effective way to highlight it, a very effective storytelling measure.
Yeah, and it makes you have an opportunity to question their motivations in ways you may not have done before.
Yeah.
This might be a little bit selfish or existentialist, but I did answer, just tangent, I did answer that I thought they were all correct in their own way, but if I were to be real with everybody, it would be that the only one who was actually wrong was Hermes, who risked gambling all of the universe's life essence whatsoever on a whim.
I don't think he really realized what kind of Pandora's box he was opening,
That's
so I
the
don't necessarily
danger.
blame him for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you can certainly blame him for stuff that came later.
You can say someone's wrong without them having intended to be wrong.
Certainly he doubled down when he did the whole I'm going to fly off with Medion to Catesis and white memories and that sort of thing. That was a choice.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was at the top of Catesis where we actually got the full report, if I recall.
Well,
Then he activated Skynet, and then everything went wrong.
So Hermes is up there in his feels. Adrenaline rush, big battle, running from the convocation, and then right there at the end,
cornered.
that was the wrong call when cornered.
And by binding himself to that himself, by wiping his own memory, he also bound Emmett and Hith to their fates, and us to ours, and Vana made her choice. It was almost like the most pivotal moment of the whole loop.
Yeah, right there at the top of the tower. / space station.
Something Tower of Babel.
And everyone everywhere on Aetheris was affected by it. Forever.
Bahamut with the jokes. Final Fantasy XIV is a commentary on the dangers of SETI programs.
I mean, that's not even a joke, really.
No.
If you go back to what Stephen Hawking said, he said
It's funny
that
because it's true.
yeah, if alien life were to encounter us, it would be like when the Europeans came to the Indians. It would be absolutely disastrous and probably destroy our society.
Yeah, like even if they're benevolent, who knows what kind of like diseases and other things they might unwittingly transmit upon us or us onto them. Like it would be bad for both parties if we were to have a traditional encounter.
Yeah, I mean, it would be bad for us because their culture, technology, everything would completely upend our way of life. And it would be bad for them because then they get people like Arden who are looking at lewd stuff on Twitter while we're talking.
Yes, if they don't have their own AO3 tags that aren't like, gonna make your eyeballs pop.
How dare you humanize space aliens?
And what would be worse though is if I don't know if any of you've read The Dark Forest, but if it was a situation like that, which is a situation that Medion essentially created in the universe until we killed her, basically.
She almost found something like that originally, and then she just made it worse.
Yeah.
I don't know that I necessarily think that that's the default state of things, but it's certainly something to be wary of.
It seems to me that even if the universe is doomed to ultimate entropy and all worlds will individually fade, the amount of time scale involved means that the Endsinger's conclusions were really, really immature. I mean, we've talked about this before, right? Even the sample size, even say however many thousands or millions of Matea are traveling, the real universe is so vast that that's a heck of a conclusion to make.
I do agree. I feel like the not even possibility, the fact that this world, this fictional universe has many different times where life has sprung up. There's all these ruins here, there's these dying civilization there, there's this, civilization in crisis here. To completely miss the fact that yet more will come in the future and you can look forward and be like, yeah, life will spring forward again somewhere else. It left me a little disappointed that this was never even like looked at or addressed. Even in the hopeful portion of it, it was just, don't die, you have stuff to live for, not there will be life again elsewhere.
Yeah. I don't look at it as Medion being very immature or childish. I see her as having too much of a macroscopic perspective. When you get so far detached from something,
She got total perspective vortex. I see.
yes, yeah,
She became Dr. Manhattan.
Well, she also became the total perspective vortex, but yes.
yeah, exactly. So when
Fortunately, the Warrior Light is Zaphod Beaverbrox, and they're too dumb to understand. Sorry. I'll stop.
Thank you so much for that.
I did have a towel in my inventory.
Good call.
Always good to come prepared.
Piggybacking on that a little bit, we have the dialogue about the like, I don't know what the term they used. It's been too long, but the stream of souls, the life stream, but like the well of souls, and how absent the planet, it'll adhere to a greater flow. So like even from the beginning of the Endsinger's understanding, we can see that souls are circulating, and so
Yeah.
again, the logic of becoming the vehicle for damning the entire universe, it's a bit much.
It comes across like for me from a writing perspective, if I were in this team, I'd be like, well, I've already written my ending. I have to write something up to it, and that's the path they took. But if I were to sit down and not have the ending written, I would not have written this path. Basically,
I agree. I would have.
it feels like
had the
they.
same perspective.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that particular kind of writing where you say, all right, here's the destination. Let's figure out how we get there. But it's not my preferred style.
You can make that sort of
It's
thing
limiting.
work, but certainly I had so much to juggle that I feel like certain things were lost in that shuffle.
Oh, they were. Absolutely.
They had so many things they needed to touch on the way to that ending that they weren't able to touch on everything as it deserved. And now with stuff like this, they are trying to touch on a few things more. But
yeah, it is nice that they're going back and filling in the cracks. I agree.
yeah, and on certain things we'll probably never get full definitive answers, which is again why Yoshi P would say something along the lines of, "It's open to interpretation."
In this case, I'm not necessarily criticizing the writing completely. It's more like it's a little bit of that, but also like the characterization of the Metea in general. They're new AI, they're entelekis, they are deeply emotional, just like the flowers influenced by sadness. And so going around and seeing a bunch of dead planets, I understand the decision point they took, but it's nice to know that it's a fallacy and that we had a logical victory there as well, not just a might makes right victory.
Yeah, it's kind of a change, especially from earlier Warrior of Light, where we're like very fierce, I will defeat you, Which, of course, if it's a good cause, but what about the day when it's not?
I don't know if this is brainworms to you, but now that we have our Meteon back, that's a lot of memory over a long period of time.
I don't necessarily think she's back, because I think her final act was to sing the Song of Hope and then go off and die.
You think the bird's
At least
just a
that's
bird?
Yeah, I think that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, they left that particular thing, I think, open to interpretation. I think, though, like in terms of like the MSQ canon, like just strict canon, that it's like Cope said, she sang a Song of Hope and then dissipated, essentially died.
I saw a picture the other day. Was it on our Discord? It was somebody complaining about a blue canary. Maybe it wasn't. I think it was in an old quest area. Obviously, the bird isn't a canary, but we got bluebird.
Yeah, there
vibes.
was something about a blue canary. I'm blanking right now, though.
If Meteon is like anything, Meteon is like the Twitter bluebird.
Social media destroyed the ancients.
Social
We'll
media
be
destroyed
next.
the universe.
We'll be
I was
next.
gonna say that's exactly what I was gonna say, Arden. What does that say for our chances?
You had one job.
I mean, we've already got cancel culture.
We've got a lot of things. But one of those things is Final Fantasy XIV.
Cue the free trial up to level 16.
I was literally just looking at that meme on Twitter.
Yeah, they
50
were.
seconds seasons ago.
They've been advertising a lot at, I think it was Anime Expo or something.
Yeah.
Speaking
yeah.
of, that is a shit show. There is $90 parking, and there is dangerous CO2 levels on the lower floors of the convention floors.
And it's a super spreader event, and apparently nobody's allowed to bring food and drink of their own into the building, and just all sorts of
Yeah, I saw all those things. I saw the fire department stopped letting people in.
I don't know, like
The
I
food
feel
and drink
like,
was a mistake apparently, and that's being rectified, but it was an oof.
like on top of the other oofs, it's a big oof.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
conventions right now, especially with COVID, are just like a big no.
I had bought a samurai outfit, a Final Fantasy XIV samurai outfit for 2020 that I was going to cosplay as for ASEN. Then COVID hit, and I haven't been to a convention since.
I remember
And I've
this.
been wanting to use that outfit, but I couldn't, and I haven't.
You
So
just need to
just in
stream in
storage.
the outfit, obviously.
Yusomo
You
says, "Come to
You
come to
should
home."
dress as a ninja and mask up.
Clearly, photo shoot's the answer.
Clearly.
That too.
I'm so
Ultimately, we
excited.
just,
I bought a lot of things for it and everything.
we're just gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to
Isoma
wait.
Art says, "Come to Hallmat, bring the outfit. We have Rock Tico in Orlando."
Oh jeez.
God, last time I was in Florida was for my brother was born.
Talk about a place
can't
with
help you with
dangerous
that.
CO2L levels.
I'm gonna assume that was a while ago.
24 years ago.
A little while.
A little bit. The only things I can remember were Epcot and taking off from the airport.
Well, all right then.
Now I'm thinking of
Yeah,
Omega as Florida Man.
and Cobron can remember a whole lot more.
I'm now thinking of Omega as Florida Man.
Yeah.
No, Omega's life isn't nearly as eventful.
See, my brother, I make fun of my brother all the time because he's so weird. And I blame it on the fact that he was born in Florida. And I was born here in Illinois. So I'm somewhat normal. That dude.
I was gonna say, well, how does that explain me? And then I remembered I was born in Michigan.
Ayumi says, "Unlike my brother, I am not Florida Man."
Us Midwesterners, we're just like you say that we have like a weird accent. I don't think we do.
They say the same thing about people born from Ontario.
It depends, Ayumi. Like you're
made of Fago.
We don't think we have an accent.
We don't have
we
as much corn as you think we do.
You do. I date someone from.
No. You pick a state in the Midwest, and I'll tell you if there is.
I'll tell you where the corn is. Spoken like a true Midwesterner.
It's Ohio. Ohio has all the corn.
Iowa.
I'll tell you where the corn is.
Iowa has all the corn.
And it's the wrong
ridiculous.
kind of corn. It doesn't even start with a K.
You need to go to Kansas for that.
Nebraska and
Iowa.
Oklahoma are just
Iowa.
flat. But yeah, we got off topic. Woohoo!
That's
They know
us.
where I
We'd
live.
never do that.
They know what's
You just
up.
could search up and down Illinois to find out where I'm at.
Do we have any chat comments on the Omega Quest or questions? Anything you want to bring to us?
Yes. What do you think Alpha was thinking during the quest line?
Alpha was probably wanting us to give Alpha feather scritches.
Yeah.
When I was doing the Omega quests and we got to Garlemald, I was just like, let me carry the two of you. I'll
Yes,
keep you warm.
And we can avoid having any stairs or other things in your way.
Yes.
Garlemald was actually my favorite leg of that quest line, talking to the Imperial soldier.
I'm glad that they gave Ulysses' buddy a name.
Yeah.
Reminds me of how many characters there are in this game. I know there's side characters, but I want more screen time.
I'm glad they gave him a name mainly because I can put him in fanfic now without having to invent something.
Do we want to touch on the live letter just for a brief moment on what we saw? I know there wasn't much lore involved, but just everyone's opinion.
I don't mind.
I heard stuff about Dragoon and got scared.
Well, they're saving the buffs and changes for Astrologian and Dragoon for a future update.
Yeah, still scary.
I am worried about the Astrologian changes.
You should be, because every time there's a change, it's at least controversial.
I'm mainly thinking that their logic is going to basically be something along the lines of we need to reduce button bloat, which I can respect, but you've already taken so much from Astrologian as it is, and it's got a decent niche to fill right now, especially with things like Macrocosmos. Please don't take anything from us anymore.
Well, we got to give it to Sage.
No. No. Sage is fine as it is.
No, it needs Macrocosmos. It needs an identity.
No.
Bahamut,
No.
it depends.
Give it more shields or something. Do something more cardio.
They can change something as simple as like a 1 GCD and it messes up an entire rotation, entire beginning rotation. So it just depends on like potency changes and whether or not they add or remove something. Because you remember that recently that they removed Kaiten from Samurai, and that's changed a lot of things up for them. And they're also changing the way direct crit and direct hit work too. So that could potentially change things. Maybe not, but that was intended for the classes that actually work off of crit and direct hits through their moves, especially. It's just to make them less confusing. So it works on our DPS better instead of overall DPS.
Some RNG reduction on Astro would be nice, I know, because the Astro in my group for DSR has had some absolutely horrible RNG on some of our pulls.
Yeah.
Just pulling cards.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the price you pay.
Yeah, it's pretty bad sometimes, and I've played it in dungeons a few times recently, and I spent like 2/3 of the dungeon pulling the same seal over and over again.
And it can hurt not to have your full 3 sign type for
Mhm.
Astro 9 when you want to do a DPS burst.
Another thing, the patch title, Buried Memory, as well as the dungeon, the Troya.
Troya, yep.
Yes, it's actually a place in Final Fantasy IV.
Sure is.
It has a lot of interesting implications, doesn't it?
It's an interesting take, because Troya was the dancing matriarchal forest town.
I am
Yep.
very much looking forward to a matriarchal society of Void Scent.
Oh, sure, absolutely. But the notion that it's on the Void, this is a bit of a difference.
And we don't know for sure if it will be in the Void or not, just because, yeah, it's the background definitely suggests it, but we've been red herring before.
Well, I don't know. That would be one hell of a red herring.
Yeah, that would be one hell of. I'm fairly certain that's on the 13th.
Screenshots tend not to lie. Trailers lie.
That's
and
true.
It also, when we looked at it, it was very much in keeping with what we saw in World of Darkness in terms of architectural style.
Yeah.
There's this other bit that I'm taking zero credit for, but I saw as well, where the localization team for the English patch name is kind of misleading, whereas the Japanese version is completely teasing and we know exactly what's going on.
Forbidden Memory?
No, it's not memory, it's Forbidden Memoria, as in the Final Fantasy IX region. And whereas the notion of buried memory is just such a different take. It's utterly different. Like, forbidden is not buried. These are different things.
Something you shouldn't know versus something you've merely forgotten.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess,
memory,
that would be the distinction between forgetting you were a Zem or whatever else in past lives versus you not knowing something because you're not supposed to.
I mean, it could be in the context of buried intentionally in order to conceal. That's kind of a stretch, but I could see it going that way as well.
I just
'Cause
still
And
think it's
before
misleading.
Estinian gets caned.
I wonder what's so forbidden. I'm very curious to see what that is going to be all about. I'm also very curious to learn more about Xenos' Void Scent, because that was also featured a little bit.
Well, Yoshida said that after this patch, the Void Scent is going to be like a fully fleshed out character, and I'm just sitting here like, excuse me, sir?
I'm excited.
What the fuck is going to happen in this patch? How long is this patch going to be?
It's going to be an actual character, and then surprise, surprise, it'll turn out to be like an Azem shard or something.
No.
Yes.
Please, no.
I say that because I'm only half joking.
Well, considering that the voice acting for it was shown to be both a male and a female voice,
yeah,
it would totally make sense.
It's going to be a they-them Azem shard as opposed to a Ardbert.
Thasm.
Yep.
See,
No,
here's why
them.
I'm excited, because they're adding with the Island Sanctuary and the Glamour Plate expansion to like 800.
The best parts of the patch.
Thank God.
Yes.
I'm so hyped.
That is especially with the Island Sanctuary, that is a lot to add to one single patch, meaning that I know it for a fact, they bought the servers. They've got the servers now. So getting a new area, a zone, or whatever in is definitely plausible at this point in time.
This patch is going to be the size of a Rogadin.
I mean, this wouldn't be the first time they've done that. They did that with Eureka. They did that with Bozja as well. Each time they added, a full zone with
there's
patch.
a thought.
But then you look at Island Sanctuary, and that is that's not only adding a new zone, that's adding entirely new mechanics, entirely new systems, entirely new items, and almost an entirely new economy.
Exactly like the Gold Saucer, which they've already done.
That puts the idea that Hildebrand is going to be the relic series for Endwalker in a bit more context.
Yeah, because the Hildebrand relics are going to be quest-based, like earlier expansions instead of, Stormblood and Shadowbringers. So
time to grind some fates.
Ugh.
Oh boy.
I
really
need another open air instance. I've been going into Eureka a lot lately. I got a whole relic finished. I went to Baldeus.
Well, they called it a quest-based progression, so we're probably not getting open air instances, and that would make sense if we're going to be getting new zones through something like the MSQ.
Yeah,
because those resources have to get shifted somewhere.
Right. They can't just make both. Like, they can't just give us an open world for this relic line and give us Iron Sanctuary or whatever else.
I agree and understand, but
it's too much. Yeah, we'll still get something though.
I, for one, am extremely excited for Island Sanctuary. I cannot wait to subject the OMG to my tropical island hell.
I wish they would hurry up and give us an Emmett minion already. Holy shit.
He's not done, apparently.
Yeah, his story's not over.
Yeah, that's the only thing good about us not having the minion is it's implying subtly that we're not done with him, which is good and bad.
Either that or my comment from months ago about them waiting until they, have a $800 Fig Arts bullshit to sell.
And I would buy it.
How you get the minion.
I would buy it like the simp that I am.
Oh my god.
I want to show something on screen. I'm going to switch scenes real quick.
I stand here and say I would never be a simp, but if they put out a Hesperos minion, I'd be like, here's my money. The bad is cute, but it's
yeah, if they handed you a Hermes or a Fandaniel or an Ammon or a Hesperos or whatever, you'd buy it. I'd probably do the same thing with Venal.
Opens up emergency commissions.
See, now I'm just imagining a Fig Arts figure of Amon and Asahi Fandaniels just waltzing together.
What, that they found some sort of accord in Super Hell and now they're in love?
No, just his two different forms waltzing with himself.
Oh, that would be cute. I like that idea a lot. And maybe, like, as a bonus, Hermes' dead body underneath them.
Waltzing on top of Hermes' body.
Oh my. The transformed body, or
Either
one.
Yeah, either one.
Bluebirds flying through the air.
This is a tweet. I just wanted to show you guys. I just did a search to find someone who had posted it, but Japanese title is called Forbidden Memoria, whereas the English official is Buried Memory. Interesting. And Sid's back to you. If you look down here, somebody had provided screenshots of the area.
What about the French and German?
I don't know, but do you see this picture here, the bottom one?
A lot of times they don't put out French and German at the same time, so we have to wait on those.
I linked the fandom article in chat for this purpose, this bottom image here, okay? And then I'm going to go over here. Where is it hiding? There.
Oh, it's not the crew hangout Q&A.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Do you see? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
you need to fix the title on that overlay.
Yeah, it's an old... I didn't change this one.
Yeah, that is 9. That's very 9.
So I just wanted to show you guys that. Please look forward to it, and we'll go back to the podcast scene. I did not change this scene.
Storage in the background?
What's that?
Was that storage in the background?
It was probably
Storge.
Alexandria, the city in 9.
Okay. I saw the wings. I was like...
The whole ass city is a primal, as I recall.
Yeah, the Alexandria is Alexander, apparently.
It's actually really cool.
It's super cool.
So we've definitely got 4 and 9 being referenced here.
Big time.
We also have 8 fully referenced in the Hildebrand quest
And
at the
10.
end.
Oh,
the alien.
Oh, I gotta do it. I'll do it after the cast. I'll work on it.
God, what are those aliens going to be doing in terms of the relic quest?
They're going to be asking for elixirs.
Wait, the aliens are going to help Geralt forge a relic for us.
Yeah.
I can't wait till you guys do Hildy. I cannot wait.
It's so good.
I'll work on it today.
It's great.
We could discuss that next week, maybe. If you want.
Oh,
Is
my
it long
God.
enough?
No, it's not.
Darn.
I mean, we could talk about Hildebrand a fair amount if we started at the beginning, but if it's just the Endwalker stuff, it's a little more limited. But what is there is really good.
Yeah,
I like it.
I just was... Well, we'll talk about it next week.
Sure.
There were some things that I was kind of disappointed with, but it's whatever.
All right, so
I-
let's talk about it for sure next week. What else
They
should we
have
talk
a
about?
new character, which I am totally in love with. That's all I'll say.
Ooh, yay.
Oh, geez, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Oh, Ayumi, judge me, but I just did my first...
I'm already am. You don't even have to say anything.
I just did my first near post-raid weekly quest this week.
Oh, good. You can be disappointed like the rest of us.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I gotta wait till the 5th to do
Can I use the 84, it's been 84 years meme now?
Yeah, do it. I'm sure our viewers are
What
used to us
happens
just
when I try
babbling.
and push you to do MSQ? You just forget about things.
Facts. Well, are we out of things to talk about?
I think that does it.
That might just
That
about
wraps
do it.
everything up.
My last comment is that I just hope that we get to see more of Alpha and Omega in the future, and I imagine we probably will.
Yeah, they said we're gonna get more, so I'm excited about that because that was good stuff.
I also am glad that we get to see
hoping
them. I just quickly, I'm also glad that we see them popping up in new zones as well. I could have sworn I saw them in Thavnir or in Rodzithan or something like.
No, I heard reports of that. Day 1 patch day. I heard somebody in chat said they saw.
Which is good. I'm glad that they're going to be exploring newer stuff.
Similarly, I'm hoping that the Void quests from Shadowbringers, the ones with the follow-on from the Roll quest, get to go somewhere, or at least get a side reference in some of the future content coming up.
Please give me more Anukulhai and Ciela, please, and Tainor and the warriors that helped us with the hunt for the virtues.
Pretty sure we will.
I'm hoping.
They can be our new dream team on the 13th and abroad.
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Like, if we want to move away from the Scions, they would be good characters to work with.
They are good characters in their own right. Like, I really had fun with them in Shadowbringers, so.
Yeah.
They're like the Scions home away from home.
You wouldn't even necessarily need to make the role quests mandatory in the strict sense. You could just have like a few of them be people who recognize you versus all of them recognizing you if you've done all of it.
I feel like it
Yeah,
would
that's
be
true.
really hard to make them all mandatory. If that were the case, they could just say, "Well, this happened on the first while we were gone." They could make Eden mandatory, but forcing people to level more than one class, I don't think is something that they would do.
Yeah, they probably won't do that.
I think the example for what they could do is right in front of us, right? I mean, with the capstone quests for the role quests, depending on which ones you'd done, you would see different people. You know,
Mm,
when you met
I feel
at
like
the
that would be
house, you
even
got a different.
harder to handle.
It would be harder, but like they clearly have alternate programming for dialogue choices based on your completions in the game. I can imagine it being a little bit of a pain in the neck, but just having the one set done. No, maybe you're right.
All I know is ultimately I want to see more Sayala and Uoko High because I like their characters, and I like those other characters too, like Sarag and Taynor. I want to see more of them all, but like I understand it would be a bit of a difficult lift. Like just in terms of having alternatives to the Scions, not just relying on the Scions forever for everything.
Yeah, and if you make too much restrictive, then especially when they don't actually lead into each other, you start to
Mhm.
get in a place where everything's mandatory, and a lot of people are
And I
turned off
mean,
by mandatory
it
stuff.
just doesn't really make any sense to me specifically for them not to have at least Sayala and Ukulhai be relevant to um the 13th because they're the only two people we know of who are from there. So they're like an invaluable resource.
Yeah, they have to be utilized. I'll be disappointed if they're not.
They even mentioned them if you'd done those quests in the MSQ. Like they talk about both of them when you're talking about the Void Fisher in Azadal.
And part of the reason we even ferried Unakalai over to the first was to meet up with Sayala and then
Yeah, to meet
train
someone he
in void
remembered.
portals. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of
Yeah.
why he went there anyway.
Yeah, they're both motivated by trying to
We
salvage their
saved this
world.
world. Let's save ours now.
Yeah, we've learned a lot of valuable a lot of valuable lessons from the first. So let's apply them to the 13th.
Only took 20,000 years.
Better late than never.
The patience on that old kid.
He's gonna come to haunt you, you know.
I think it would also be funny and a little ironic for people who were working for the Asians for however long, for them to be doing a reverse rejoining, fixing a world that was broken in an attempt to rejoin rather than rejoining it.
Yeah.
It would be interesting, yeah.
And yeah, I really like that they even talk about, the Asians and the rejoinings during the Omega Quest line, where they, pretty much say, everything's perspective. There were really no bad guys in this. Everyone was justified in one way or another.
I feel like that Omega was a really good point of view character to sort of take that step back and look at it this way because for one the like detachment logic, stepping away from emotion, and for two, literally an observer just dormant where it'd fallen,
Omega has no skin in this game. Omega is someone from another world
Exactly.
Mhm.
and was not sundered. The reason it's here is because it was pursuing the dragons. Like, so its perspective is basically, I just want to understand.
Right. All
Whereas
right.
we're like, face first in it. We have no choice but to try and form an opinion and stick to it.
So at this point, might be a good time to wrap and start getting ready for our annual War on the Sky.
Oh, tell me more.
I had enough of that last night.
That
Someone
happened.
actually hit a transformer
Oh god.
and
We
knocked
had
out my power last night.
Oh,
due to
which one was it? Optimus?
it was a Megatron, actually.
Oh, that's disappointing.
we had plenty of fireworks on the first for Canada Day, which kept me up late at night. So please no. Though it was never as bad as July 4th was when I lived in Florida, which felt like cannons going off.
I'm going to be taking my my 4-year-old and my 8-year-old down to the park for the celebration tomorrow. It's going to be loud, and I already know my son is going to be holding his ears because he does that even when people are talking loud.
Are you cutting yourself off or are you lagging?
I might be lagging a bit. But no, I was saying I'm going to take my kids down to the park tomorrow to see the fireworks, and I already know my boy is going to be holding his ears because he does that even when somebody's just talking too loud and he doesn't want it. So we'll see how that goes. But I guess we will wrap. Everybody, thank you for being here after our hiatus, and I had a good time. I don't know. I hope everybody else in the cast had a great time.
I had a terrible time.
Ugh. I try.
I had an existential time.
An existential time. Fair point. All right, everybody. Have an existential afternoon, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much for coming up.